Welcome to House of Our Man, Sunday Conversations. I'm your host, Slow Slide. Today's topic will be cognitive dissonance. We'll also take a look at the Afro-Cuban psychiatrist and philosopher Frantz Fanon and his work with cognitive dissonance. In previous episodes of Sunday Conversations, we've discussed inappropriate behavior patterns within the community as a mental health illness or disease. A disease is a defect within an organ or organism, right? So our community would be the organism, or organization. The defect is inappropriate behavior. The causality to the defect of inappropriate behavior is infectious and not genetic. Again, we're talking about behavior patterns. Behavior is learned and not inherited, thus it's not genetic. It is infectious. Someone has infected us with thought processes that manifest itself in inappropriate behavior. We also took a look at some of the symptoms of inappropriate behavior that we see in our community. One of the big obstacles to overcoming the inappropriate behavior is the psychological phenomenon known as cognitive dissonance. Afro-Cuban psychiatrist, philosopher, revolutionary, and writer Frantz Fanon's works are influential in the fields of post-colonial studies and critical theory. As an intellectual, Fanon was a Pan-Africanist concerned with the psychopathology of colonization and the human, social, and cultural consequences of decolonization. Let's take a look at one of my favorite quotes from Frantz Fanon. Sometimes people hold a core belief that is very strong. When they are presented with evidence that works against that belief, the new evidence cannot be accepted. It will create a feeling that is extremely uncomfortable, called cognitive dissonance. And because it is so important to protect the core belief, they will rationalize, ignore, and even deny anything that doesn't fit in with the core beliefs. So cognitive dissonance is a state of having inconsistent thoughts, beliefs, or attitudes, especially as it relates to behavioral decisions and attitude change. In psychology, cognitive dissonance is the mental stress or discomfort experienced by a person who simultaneously holds two or more contradictory beliefs, ideas, or values. When performing an action that contradicts the existing belief, ideas, or values, or when confronted with new information that contradicts the existing beliefs, ideas, or values. How do we reduce, or when you're talking about reducing cognitive dissonance or reducing the dissonance is the discomfort, the disharmony in the two beliefs or in what you believe and the actions that you're taking. There are three ways to reduce dissonance. One, altering the importance or value of the conflicting belief. Two, emphasize a new belief that supports your behavior. Or three, changing your behavior altogether. Let's take a look at an example of cognitive dissonance and look at each of those three ways to resolve it and how that example of cognitive dissonance may be resolved. So the belief, let's say the belief is that stealing is illegal and immoral and I'm an honest person. but the behavior that is exhibited is stealing office supplies, right? Most people can relate to that, right? So how do people deal with the dissonance or the discomfort of their belief that stealing is illegal and immoral and that they're an honest person, and how do they reconcile that with the behavior or the inappropriate behavior of stealing office supplies, right? They can alter the importance or value of the belief, right? Stealing isn't really that bad, right? They'll rationalize it, change the value or the importance. At first they said stealing is illegal and immoral, but then to relieve the dissonance, they'll convince themselves that stealing isn't really that bad. Number two, emphasize a new belief that supports the new behavior, right? Everyone else does it. I'm not the only one. I deserve a little more for my hard work. These particular supplies are never used anyway, so they'll go to waste if I leave them here, right? So they emphasize a new belief. They kind of talk themselves into supporting that behavior. Now, the third way to relieve the dissonance, in which I believe is the appropriate way to deal with inappropriate behavior, is to change the behavior altogether, right? If you believe that stealing is illegal and immoral and that you are an honest person, then instead of stealing the office supplies, you would want to change that behavior and say to yourself, I will not steal these supplies. We can often think of some other examples. For instance, I know in our community, one of the things that we dealt with here recently is the use of the word nigger, right? And most of us in our community feel that the word nigger is a vile word. It's profane. We don't want to be called nigger. We don't want our children to be called nigger, right? But then what is the behavior? We call each other nigger, right? So, and then if you look at the three different ways to resolve the dissonance, right? We know that nigger is not a good word and should not be used in any sense. How do we correct the behavior of calling each other nigger, right? So you can alter the importance of the value of the belief, right? Say to yourself, hey, nigga is not really that bad of a word. Nigga is something that everybody says all the time. Or emphasize a new belief that supports your behavior by saying everyone says the word nigger. I've been saying the word nigger forever. My mom, my dad called me nigger. Being called nigger ain't never hurt nobody. We've changed the meaning of the word nigger. We've made it our own. We've made it a term of endearment where one black person can say it to another black person as a term of endearment. Those are the kind of the examples of the first two ways. Again, the third way, the way in which I support, is to change the behavior altogether, right? To tell yourself, I will not use the word nigger. We tie all of this in to talking about the disorder, right? So cognitive dissonance would be the defect within our community or within our organization, right? What are some of the symptoms of that? Is us not wanting to let go of some of the misbeliefs about ourselves, us not wanting to take the time to study and to learn the truth about who we are. And a lot of folks, for instance, I got a lot of feedback from previous Sunday conversations, and people were saying, Carlos, you kind of go hard on the whole white Jesus thing and how believing in a white God is not healthy for black people. And most people today will say, hey, well, do black people still really believe that Jesus was white, and things of that nature? Well, you have to understand that we've been through hundreds of years of being conditioned to be this way. or to think these types of thoughts, where we see our oppressor as superior to us. And their number one tool for doing that was to convince black and brown people that God was white. And that hasn't disappeared. We can take a look at some statements made during the Republican National Convention by the Republican Iowa Congressman, Representative Steve King. Let's take a look at what Representative Steve King has to say, or the propaganda that he puts out about white people and their contribution to civilization versus every other group and their contribution to civilization. Let's take a listen.
In that hall today, that hall is wired. That hall is wired by loud, unhappy, dissatisfied white people.
Very white. Yes, very white crowd.
Any sign of rebellion is going to get shouted down, or shouted down either kindly or roughly. But that's what's going to happen.
This whole white people business, though, does get a little tired, Charlie. I mean, I'd ask you to go back through history and figure out where are these contributions that have been made by these other categories of people that you're talking about. Where did any other subgroup of people contribute more to civilization?
And white people?
Than Western civilization itself, that's rooted in Western Europe, Eastern Europe, and the United States of America, and every place where the footprint of Christianity settled the world. That's all of Western civilization.
Well, what about Asia?
I want to sit here and argue in favor of We're not going to argue the history of Western civilization. Let me note for the record that if you're looking at the ledger of Western civilization.
Now, in this piece, Representative King is saying that white people have made a greater contribution to civilization than any other subgroup, right? Any other subgroup. So he's not even, if you're not white, you're a subgroup. That's the first part. The second part of the propaganda is that white people are responsible for every major development within civilization throughout history. And he also uses it to say everywhere that European Christians went, they had the impact on the culture. Well, one of the things we want to start off with is that that's not true. So even if you take a look at Christianity, you have to understand we've been showing that Christianity, or the Bible, and all scripture, ancient texts, are all originate from Africa, right? Most of the ideas, the stories, even some of the characters that are in the Bible all come from Africa. For instance, we can take a look at Psalms and then take a look at the Amenepe and Psalms and see how similar the writings were, right? So if we take a look here, we can easily see where the writings are similar. So we hope that you enjoyed this Sunday's conversation. Hope that you join us again next week for Sunday's conversation. Be blessed.